Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear volunteers, friends, colleagues, and well-wishers, good evening. I'm Amin Gulamani, and on behalf of the Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio of the Ismaili Council for Pakistan, I welcome you all to the session on Harnessing Emotional Intelligence by Azim Jamal from Canada. This session is part of the continuous professional development series of the Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio, whose mandate is to enhance the capacity of the volunteers in the Jamaat so that they can perform their responsibilities in an efficient and effective manner. Today's session will be moderated by Salim Devji from South Africa, who is an entrepreneur in the technology space. He is passionate about the growth in others and himself. He creates and advises on the company boards in Africa and the Middle East. He's also an active member of the HBS Africa Advisory Board. I now request Salim to formally start the session.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Amin, for your kind introduction. I'm honored to be the moderator for your event this evening. As we begin this session, we wanted to express our immense gratitude to our amazing volunteers. I often reflect that when I think one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be part of this community is for the amazing contribution that the volunteers make to the community. We appreciate all your efforts. Tonight's program has been made especially for you, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. So thank you, and thank you once again. Let's begin the program. So if you Google the benefits of emotional intelligence, you get a whole list of benefits, and we will cover some of those benefits. But as many of us will often ask the question is, where is the proof? How do you know that emotional intelligence actually is working? And over the last few decades, the last 2-3 decades, there's been a lot of emphasis and research on how your well-being, how does emotional intelligence actually affect you? And how does it really benefit? So there's now science out there that will tell you that 77% of CEOs in a recent survey, for example, by PwC, they've said that they're struggling to find skills that's going to help them build stronger and better businesses. And when they say skills, the number one skill that they're looking for is emotional intelligence. It is the most valuable, but also the most difficult skill to get in people. PepsiCo executives who were hired specifically because they had a high emotional intelligence, they performed 10% better. They were more productive by 10% than all the others. So there is more than enough data in the world to show that emotional intelligence is an essential skill to help us become better servant leaders, to help us become better volunteers, but also to be generally better individuals in all aspects of our lives. So our evening conversation is going to be about harnessing emotional intelligence. Let me share with you our plan for this evening. I will in a short while introduce Azim. I will ask him a few questions so we have a foundational basis of what do we mean by emotional intelligence. I will then invite him to talk about a framework that he calls emotion. We will then have a Q&A, and then we will go to closing remarks. So that's the structure that we will try and follow today. I hope that you will ask a lot of questions. Key to value is asking questions. It's getting engaged. So throughout the conversation that I will have with Azim, please post your questions. Where possible, we will answer them directly. Otherwise, we will answer them later in the program. So please engage. That's what's going to make it more powerful for all of us. It is now my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Azim Jamal. Azim is an internationally sought after inspirational speaker and leadership coach. He is born in Tanzania and educated in Kenya, the UK, and Canada. He is founder of Corporate Sufi Worldwide, a company that inspires and empowers leaders to achieve material success blended with a deep sense of purpose, balance, and happiness. Keyword happiness. He acquired 3 professional accounting qualifications before switching from accounting for business to accounting for life. And this happened after a life-changing experience volunteering with refugees. Azim's inspiring message has been heard live by over 1 million people in 100 cities across 5 continents. His books and his media messages have been reaching more than 5 million people globally. He lives in Vancouver, Canada, but as I say, his heart is global. You're no stranger to him as the Pakistan Jamal. Azim, welcome to the conversation with our amazing volunteers and guests this evening. Azim.
Thank you, Salim. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, Azim. So I would like to start with asking you a couple of questions so we can get a base. And if anyone wants to start sharing some of their experiences, what does it mean to be a volunteer? What are some of the challenges that you're focusing or you're feeling? Please post them. They don't have to be a question. You can just make statements. So, Azim, can you please start by just sharing a few stories on your experience as a volunteer? The good, the bad, the middle, it doesn't matter. How has it been for you to be a volunteer? Share some stories, please.
So thank you, Salim. I remember long back, about 35 years ago, I had moved from England to Canada, and I was really into volunteer work, and I had put a lot of effort. Whether it was smart is a secondary question. I was young at that time, but I put a lot of effort into my work. And one day in a board meeting, one of the leaders called me up in front of everybody and criticized my work and mentioned that I was not committed, I didn't do my work properly, went on and on and on, and I was totally destroyed. I came home and I almost wanted to quit being a volunteer. Luckily for me, I had my dad as a mentor and my mom's brother, my uncle, my mama, who was very much involved in the service, who were able to coach me and tell me, look, Azim, somebody's definition of who you are, they don't define you, it's their opinion. Number one. Number two is you have learned something now and you become a leader. You don't criticize people in public like that. And number three, you don't have to be in denial. If the person said something that was true, you can learn from it. So luckily with that kind of guidance, I was able to bounce back and bounce back bigger. But the reason I bring this up is that we as volunteers have to be careful. The philosophy is praise in public, criticize in private. There's a fellow from Karachi. Everybody might know him. His name is Aziz Sharif. He's based in Dubai and in Vancouver. I worked with him when I came to Karachi and Islamabad to work with the refugees, Afghan refugees, many years ago, which actually made me change my career from accounting for business to accounting for life. Aziz had a very good habit. He used to praise people in public. I remember he would call a volunteer in front of me and say, Azim, this is a foot soldier. You and me are talking about strategy, but these people are the ones who are really working on the ground, and made the volunteer feel so special, but sincere, authentic, and specific. Or he'd call another volunteer and say, Azim, this volunteer walks 6 miles to come to Marriott Hotel to meet us, and he walks back. Even if I offer him bus money or taxi money, he doesn't want it. He's too proud in a positive way not to take the money. So again, praising somebody specifically in front of other people, making them feel good. So both examples are examples of emotional intelligence in one way. One is a positive, one is not so positive.
How is it that you did not get discouraged when you were told something negative? How do you keep your spirits up when someone tells you something that you're not happy about?
Today, with Allah's grace, with my development, what I do, I would bounce back bigger and stronger. And sometimes I look for that just to make sure that I bounce back bigger and stronger, because nobody can define what I can do, right? But we have to be careful. Everybody is not at the same level, and you could destroy people's confidence. But the idea is two things. You don't want to be in a denial. When somebody's saying something, you want to be objective. Maybe they're right, and maybe you can learn from it. But how do you not get discouraged, but in fact get more energized to bounce back bigger and stronger?
All right, fantastic. So let me start now with a few questions for you that will allow us, I think, to have a foundation for this conversation. Let's start with a very simplistic question so that, again, we have a common understanding for the audience. What is your definition of emotional intelligence, please?
A good question, Salim. The best definition I like for emotional intelligence is to discern, evaluate, control, and handle your own emotions and others' emotions in a positive manner.
All right. So that means that you need to understand that it's starting from the inside, right?
Your own emotions and the other people's emotions, the people you are interacting with, and sometimes it's group's emotion if you're handling a group together. But it starts with you.
Fantastic. Let me go to the next question. I think as a community, but even, we have this philosophy of how do we become better? How do we become better? We read, we research, and then we get all of these words in our mind. And I know many people understand and perhaps have participated in conversations on emotional intelligence. But now there is a word of EQ. There is a word of IQ. Can you perhaps shed light? EQ, IQ, EI, what's going on? Please give us some clarification.
IQ, as you know, has been around for many, many years. It's basically a set of, standard tests which evaluate or assess the human intelligence. And that's been around for so long. And it's been a good test for many years in terms of people's academic abilities. However, the word emotional intelligence came about, in 1990 when somebody wrote a very good article. In fact, it was Peter Salovey and Mayer. Peter Salovey is now the president of the Yale University, who wrote an article on emotional intelligence. And then when Dr. Daniel Goleman wrote the book Emotional Intelligence in 1995, it became very, very mainstream. However, the difference between EI and EQ is emotional intelligence, is this emotional quotient, a measurement. Whereas emotional intelligence, EI, is actually the practical application of the knowledge you have about emotion. Now, in the last 30 years, both these words are being used interchangeably in terms of EI and EQ. So people use them as if it's the same thing. And so it's become mainstream right now. But however, if you want to be technical, emotional quotient is a measurement. Emotional intelligence is a practical application of what you know. So just having EQ quotient doesn't mean you are good at practical and applying it in daily life.
Understand. So I can say the EQ is the what and the EI is the execution of the what. So having the knowledge and then the application, that's how you distinguish the two.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess when you talk about IQ, everybody knows what IQ. You need IQ to do well in school. But now the conversation that we're having today is about the importance of EI, emotional intelligence. It's great to be smart, but if you don't have the ability to connect, then there's a problem. It doesn't matter how smart you are, you're not going to be productive. Really, the data I was sharing earlier, that CEOs are looking for bright people all the time, but now they want people with EI.
Yeah. If you can't get along with people, you can't get much done, right?
Can't get much done. It's as simple as that. Thank you. So our session's title today is Harnessing Emotional Intelligence. Why are we using the word harnessing tonight?
The reason we're using the word harnessing is to make sure that we're applying emotional intelligence for a good use, for a positive use. People can misuse the ability to be having that kind of knowledge and intelligence and use it for their own gain. For example, a politician might play on a crowd fears or on people's emotions to get his or her own hidden agenda. Or an employee or manager might spread some rumors just to get their own strategy in place. Or you could have a volunteer or leader or a partner who would manipulate, to be able to get their way out. So harnessing is to really use it in a positive manner and to get the most effective outcome from the knowledge you have and the ability you have.
Great. I'm going to ask you one more question before we start looking at your framework. And this comes back to something that, Maulana Hazimam has talked about a lot, quality of life. How does EI play? What role does EI play in the role of EI?
So good question. Let me think about this. So quality of life. So if you have emotional intelligence and if you are well versed in who you are as a person inside you, you're able to get along with other people around you and also with groups, and your confidence is high because you can do that. it makes you feel you have a little bit of self-esteem. You have a bit of ability to interact with people. So even though you may not be financially well off or having other struggles, but this ability to be able to do that makes you feel better, and therefore have some impact on your quality of life. And by that skill, you may be able to do better in life, because that's proven that that skill sets you apart. Then you may be able to achieve success in other walks of life, which helps you in your quality of life as well.
Absolutely. So if you develop emotional intelligence, then almost by definition, your quality of life should improve because you've got that there. Okay. All right. So there is a question that's popping up. What do you do when you get put down? Or what do you do when you get insulted? And what do you do then to get to stay positive? Maybe those are two separate questions, but certainly in our community, sometimes we have leaders that don't have the level of emotional intelligence we would like. And like you shared earlier today, how do you actually manage that?
So if you're doing voluntary work and you get insulted by a Jamaati member or by a colleague or by your leader, okay, first of all, you always remember, why am I serving? I am serving because I'm blessed to serve. I feel privileged to serve. I know I get barakah, not just physical, material barakah, but spiritual barakah. In some way we say I'm chosen. As Rumi says, or Khalil Gibran says, he who chooses the divine has been chosen by the divine, right? So you come from that source. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if somebody insults you, you have to ask yourself, what did you do to be insulted? Did you do something wrong? If you did something wrong, you take ownership and work on it and improve it, and thank the person for their feedback to raise it to you, so you don't keep making the same mistakes again. So you're being objective, not just reacting. And number three, if you have not done anything wrong, if somebody is saying something out of their own problems or their own paradigm or their own judgment, then you say thank you, and make sure that you know that somebody else's definition doesn't define who you are, that you are true, you've been objective, you analyze the situation, and you move on. And in fact, because you go back to your source, the purpose why you're doing what you're doing, you're not doing this to be credited, to be praised. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to make impact, and you continue to make more impact. And in fact, if you are strong, make more impact, because you have this inverse paranoia. Whatever happens for the best. Is making me stronger, not weaker. When Azim said in March, Azim said, this virus, this COVID is there. I want my Jamaat to be strong. I want my Jamaat to prepare, and prepare well for the future. So to be strong in crisis, to be strong in difficulties. Anybody can be strong when things are well and you're being praised and all that, but sometimes you need to be strong when things are difficult. And that is also part of emotional intelligence, because you're using your emotions not to react. You're using your emotions to respond, and respond positively. So insults don't affect you. In fact, you ask yourself, can I improve and avoid those insults if I have made any mistakes in any form, shape, or manner?
I would push a little bit on that one. It's actually not easy when someone you respect or somebody that's above you will insult you, because you need to have that emotional maturity to shield yourself from that comment and go back to the principle. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this to impact the Jamaat. I'm doing this to help the Jamaat. So you have to have, I guess, a cognitive recognition that that's an opportunity to learn and to grow. It is tough. I have to share that. Absolutely. If somebody says something negative about me, I'm going to say, come on, I will want to fight back. But what you're saying is take a step back, understand why, and then deal with it in a mature way.
Absolutely. Salim, you're making a great point there, because if you want to go higher in the ladder of leadership, be prepared to be, what's the saying, the Sufi saying? Nobody throws a stone at a barren tree. When the tree is full of fruits, people will throw stones at you. So when you're becoming substantive, people will find faults with you. Otherwise, if you don't want any criticism, any insults, then you will stay where you are at a low level, where nobody will point a finger at you. So be prepared. As you go higher, there'll be more things happening to you, but it's how you handle it with your emotional maturity, as you mentioned, will determine. But yes, it's not easy. It's not easy for all of us, right?
All right. There's a question that's come in. Really, it's a life balance kind of question. The question is, we have a busy life and are less involved in voluntary service. And I believe globally, we're seeing that it's becoming harder and harder for people to commit time to volunteering in our Jamaat and in other activities for our community. It is becoming tough. The demands of life are tough. What can we do to participate more in voluntary service?
Great question. Great question. I think two things here. Basically, if you realize the power of giving, the power of voluntary service, I believe, and this is only my opinion, you learn from being a volunteer than maybe going to Harvard, because the kind of skills you pick up on the ground of interpersonal skills, intrapersonal skills, being a leader, I learned how to speak as a volunteer. I was able to do many sessions when I was younger. When I was doing my seminars, I learned to become better. So many things we learn in life. People, we go out in the world, in the professional world, they say to you, where do you learn all these things? And you start asking yourself, well, where did I learn this? And you go back and you see, I learned it when I was a volunteer, because the kind of skills people don't get paid, but they work harder than they work in a professional life. So that's one thing you have to realize, that when you're volunteering, you're actually benefiting more than if you didn't volunteer. The question I always say is, don't say, what will I lose by giving? Say, what will I lose by not giving? Okay, that's one part. The second part is, how do you become smarter? You see, when you are a volunteer, you're a professional, you're a family man, you want to do something about your health, about your lifelong learning, guess what? You're going to be more smarter. You'll manage your time better, because busy people get more things done. So you'll be a ruthless time manager. You will focus on the vital few, not the trivial many. And in voluntary work, there's a vital few and a trivial many. In professional work, there's a vital few and a trivial many. In family life, there's a vital few and a trivial many. So you'll focus on that 10% that gives you 90% return, because you have to do it. You have no choice. So you become a better navigator of your time and of your life.
Yeah, I mean, the common saying goes that if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Absolutely.
Because the organizational skills are there. Okay. So another question that's popped up, what to do to be more compassionate in voluntary work? And I think compassion is something that is almost inbred in our community. Compassion is what we need to be able to, I believe, serve well. So what to do to be more compassionate? How do we develop compassion in voluntary work?
So one of the definitions I like about compassion is, I feel your pain in my heart. And of course, if you if within yourself you have the desire to help and to make impact and to create positive outcome, you will be guided. From where? From within. Because within you have that ability. Sometimes even starting with the basic empathy with the person, and then going deeper and understanding a person's problem, and sometimes even by understanding, by your active listening, helping the person to define and articulate what they're going through, is also a start to the help that you want to create, right? So I think it comes from within. There's an example I remember of a father and son. This father was very busy, and his son was bothering him, a young son, and he wanted to keep his son quiet. So he tore his newspaper into 100 pieces. He said, Beta, do this puzzle, and then I play with you. So Beta was reluctant, but he said, if that's what it takes to play with you, then I will do it. So he went reluctantly do it, and the father said, now I can take an hour, half an 45 minutes to do my work. He can struggle with the puzzle. He won't finish it, but then I will, play with him. 5 minutes later, the boy finished his puzzle. He said, Papa, finish. He said, finish what? He said, puzzle. Which puzzle? You gave me the puzzle. The newspaper? He said, yeah. He said, how do you do that? He said, Dad, it was easy. In the newspaper, there was a river. And behind the river, there was a man. I just fixed the man, and the whole thing got fixed. And the moral of the story is, when you fix the person, the life around you gets fixed. So if you are fixed, if you're coming from a source from within, everything becomes okay, because you're guided every step of the way. We didn't expect these questions coming in. You got to be on your toes to be ready to be able to navigate your life and your response when life throws at you, because you have a purpose. You have a purpose and you have a goal, and everything else is guided by that outcome, right?
Excellent. One more question before then we go to the emotion framework. The question is, we often see that in voluntary service, it's not always geared towards results. It's not always results oriented. How do we control that? And I think in different parts of the world, as the volunteerism is becoming more and more professional, we're trying to have more results oriented. But if the results oriented foundation is not there, how do we address that?
So you cannot make a change in anything in life if you're a spectator. You can only make a change if you play the game, right? You got to be in the ground to make things happen, right? So if you as a volunteer have that emotional intelligence, if you as a volunteer have the capacity to be result oriented, to be goal oriented, you can bring this up with your emotional intelligence. It's how you bring it up with the compassion, with the empathy, but at the same time you don't allow, part of this harnessing is you want to ruffle some feathers. Empathy doesn't mean you don't do anything. You do things to ruffle some feathers so that you can make improvements. So how do you bring your skill set to be able to create that outcome and not just sit back and just be control freak and not go anywhere? Because you're putting your time, your energy, your expertise. Hazima wants us to use best practices. Hazima wants us to make a positive impact in what we do, and want us to bring professionalism in volunteerism, right? So yeah, bring it, but in a way you bring it that has an impact, and not insult people or criticize people or tell people they don't know what they're doing. But how do you make people take ownership, almost like them coming up with a solution, but you
Excellent.
facilitate it, right?
Yeah. So make the change that you want to see. So
Yeah.
propose. Excellent. All right. So I'd like to invite you now to share your emotion framework. We'll bring up a set of slides right now. And if you could please take us through this. Now, you've got 7 slides. We'll talk a few minutes on each of your points, emotion being the framework. And what I would like to recommend to the listeners is don't worry about memorizing all of this. I think very much you want to identify 1 or 2 changes that you can make, we can make in our lives. Choose the ones that resonate with you, that you believe will have an impact on your service. So let's start. Let's start with the first question on empathy. What is empathy? And I understand that there's different types of empathy. Please elaborate on these different types of empathy. Is that a feeling? Is empathy a feeling, or is it a state of mind, a state of being? So walk us through empathy, please.
Okay, so I mean, one can define empathy as putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. One can define it as watching body language. You can watch my body language right now. You can tell whether I'm energized, inspired or lethargic. You can tell, yeah. So body language is another way to look at connecting with somebody, the mirror image. Or you can respond to somebody's feelings. Somebody's overworked in your volunteer team, and he's been working late because of COVID. You express and see, I realize you've been working late. I appreciate it. Just to make sure that the person knows that you know how the person is feeling instead of ignoring it completely. Yeah. Now, in terms of the 3 types of empathy, the first one is cognitive empathy. I understand your perspective from the mind. How you think, your perception is all mind. The second one is emotional empathy. I feel what you feel, the second type. And the third type is empathic concern, which is more about, I actually want to help you with how you're feeling. So for example, you might have 2 types of volunteers. One is empathetic. He will sit down with you and empathize and feel your body and understand your body and understand your feeling, but who does nothing else. And there's another type of a volunteer who actually has that, but then solves your problems. So the third type, empathic concern, is what it does. And sometimes people use sympathy and compassion. Sympathy is cognitive, mind, and compassion is heart, and then also helping you with your problem. So you want people to be able to solve your problems after they empathize and not just sit there and not do anything about it, right?
Excellent. Let's move on to the next slide about motivation. How is motivation connected to emotional intelligence, and how is that connected to volunteers being committed? How do you get more committed? How do we use motivation to get committed?
So Salim, people who have high emotional intelligence are basically driven to have a high standard of quality. They're also driven to have high sets of goals, and because they have that ability, they would set the standard high for the volunteers. And you'll find these individuals who have high emotional intelligence and who are motivated, are optimistic. They take advantage of opportunities. They have this idea of taking initiative. There's a study done in Stanford in 1972. It's called the marshmallow study. Okay, where they took kids and they gave them a marshmallow, and they said, you can eat this marshmallow, or if you wait 15 minutes or so, we'll give you 2 marshmallows. And then they gave them 15 minutes and came back. Some people had eaten the marshmallow already and some didn't. And they kept track of these individuals for 10 or so many years, and they found out that those who delayed gratification actually achieved more in life. because they were able to control their emotions and not give in to quick gratification. They had a long-term perspective. So volunteers who have high emotional intelligence are motivated and are able to delay gratification for a long-term benefit, to build foundation, to build trust, to set goals, to be result-oriented. All these things take time, but are much more beneficial in the long term.
I'm going to answer a question that's just popping in, or I'm going to ask you the question that just popped in. How does EI play a role in achieving desired results?
Okay, so you want to answer? Yeah. So basically, if you know your emotions, if you know your colleagues' emotions, if you know your group's emotions, and people are looking for that kind of direction for results, and part of this intelligence that you have is to make sure that you want to respect people's time, because otherwise they will feel bad about their involvement because they're not seeing any results and yet putting energy and time and effort. So you'll make sure that you have a discussion with the team and together come up with what goals you want to set, which becomes your target, your results, your focus, right? And so I think that becomes the way to use your emotional intelligence to become result oriented, as opposed to just output oriented, but not outcome oriented. You want outcome oriented, not just output oriented.
And therefore, that's how you make impact.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the O of emotion.
So
you say, emotions. O is about others. You say, emotional intelligence about others. I really feel that it starts inside you, but now you're telling us that it's about others. Why are others so important in emotional intelligence equation?
So Salim, there is no one-man army. I mean, have you seen a one-man army? Right now, I could be talking to the Jamaat or the volunteers, but you are there and you are helping me because you're challenging me, you're probing me, you are taking care of all the slides and everything, and I can relax, in my t-shirt and just be myself, right? So others are important to achieve your goals. In the volunteer corps, if you only have one volunteer who is the president, the captain, the leader, how much he or she will achieve? Not much. So others are important. So being able to inspire others, to empower others, to engage others becomes very important to achieve a success in your journey towards what you're trying to achieve. There's something called an emotional bank account. If you write a check and you have no money in the bank, what happens? The check bounces, right? Because there's no money. In a relationship, if there's no emotional credit, you're not putting trust into it, rapport into it, all that, then you make a mistake, it bounces to you, right? Because there is no credit in your account. So the more you build emotional bank account with people, the more relationships you build, the more you are able to build teamwork and get better results in the long term. And that also implies communication skills, conflict resolution skills, and ability to catch people doing things right, not catch people doing things wrong.
All right, excellent. Your next letter is T for time. And here specifically, you advocate that if you are able to practice emotional intelligence effectively, you actually save time. Exactly how does that happen? Please let us know.
So volunteers are already busy and we're asking them to learn another skill of emotional intelligence, in which they may assume it's taking me time to learn this, but I don't have time already. The reality is, when you become emotionally intellectual person with emotional intelligence, what happens is you are building the rapport, the trust, the transparency, and all that is helping you to become more efficient and more effective, because now people are not going to talk in the corridor. They will talk in the meeting because they are open to talk, because you allow them to be themselves, to be authentic. They will not have ego battles, and they won't create issues which will stop your productivity. So what you're doing is you're slowing down to speed up. For example, if somebody comes to see you in your room and you're on your computer and you've got your phone and some paperwork, and you take 60 seconds, 1 minute, put your computer aside, put your phone aside, and give this person 60 seconds, undivided attention, what will happen? And then you can tell the volunteer, look, I have to finish this thing. Can we continue? But by giving that 60 seconds, you make somebody feel special. Because 60 seconds can be eternity when you're totally present. Your body, your mind, your spirit. Most people are not present. Their mind is all over the place, and you don't get the empathy, you don't get the connection, you don't get the feeling of valued, and that makes the things get even longer. It's like somebody complaining and you're trying to be defensive, the complaint will go for 2 hours. Instead, you listen properly, you repeat the complaint in your own words, more than 70% is already solved.
So if someone comes to me and says, I just need 1 minute of your time, you know it's never 1 minute. You know it's going to be a long conversation usually. And so, yes, I'm practicing emotional intelligence. I open up the door, I open up the opportunity for that 1 minute conversation, but it becomes longer and longer. Now, if I try and stop that conversation, I'm being rude. I'm not practicing emotional intelligence. Am I missing something?
No, you're right. So I think the 60 seconds, the first 60 seconds, if you really, really give that minute with eyes, ears, heart, undivided attention, no judgment, then whatever you say next is like a bullet. Because you've given the person, like you almost treat like the person is a king or a president of a country or whatever, and you give, it's like if you treat people, Salim, this is very powerful. If you treat each person as the most enlightened person you ever met, you give this person for 1 minute as if this person is the most enlightened person you ever met. I tried this on my cousin's son was born in Toronto. Okay, I went to see when he's born, and I read this quote about this 1 minute thing. So I started to look at this kid as if the kid is the most enlightened kid I have ever saw. And this boy is just born. His hairs go up. He's got good pimple. I mean, he even got it, and he's just been born. It's amazing. So I think slow is fast, but it has to be genuine, not when people can see authenticity. It's not the words you use, it's the heart. This is what emotional intelligence is, the head and the heart, the combination.
Okay, and we'll talk about that combination in a second. I now want to take you to the I, influence. Influence can be good, influence can be bad. How do volunteers use influence in the context of emotional intelligence to become better sevadaris, to become better leaders, to become better human beings?
So if you were to define leadership into one word, the word would be influence. And I'm going to share a story with you. Many years ago, I was appointed in the council for British Columbia in Canada as a social welfare board chair. So the president of the council in second term was President Firoz Rasool, who is now the president of the Arkan University in Karachi. So he calls me to congratulate me. He says, Azim, Mubaraki, you've been appointed the chairman of the social welfare board in the council. So I said to Firoz, oh, I'm looking forward to work for you. And Firoz said, no. You're not going to work for me. You're going to work with me. What a paradigm. Here I am looking up to him as president, second term. I'm going to work for him. He's the CEO of Ballard Corporation. But he's saying, no. We're going to be a team. We're going to work together. Starting point. Then after a couple of weeks, 3 weeks in my position, I saw I had a team of 8 people. They were all burned out, fighting fires, all this casework of people having problems. So I said, no, I need to do something different. So I brought in the meeting at Firoz was the president. I said, look, I'm trying to take these 8 people for a retreat and build a team and this, that, the other. And I was expecting him to say, no, because, I was used to working in a system where the answer is no. What's the question? Firoz said, here's the ball, run with it. As long as you're meeting your goals, you're ethical, he gave me the permission, and boy, I run. In 4 years, from 8 people, I had more than 100 people in my team. But he gave me the empowerment. That's influence. And when I was finishing my term after 3 years, it was Firoz's second term, Firoz Rasool's second term, mine was the first term. So he calls me to say, Azim, what's next for you? So I tell Firoz Rasool, I said, President, I'm going to write my new book now, and I need to concentrate, so why don't you give something to somebody else? I will still serve, but let me focus on my new career. You know what he said to me? He said, Azim, you will write your book not instead of your position. You'll write your book in spite of your position. So of course I said yes. So this is influence. How you influence people with that kind of charisma. There's something called resonant leadership. Resonance, right? Same wavelength, which has 4 components: coaching, affiliative, democratic, and visionary. These leaders are more that kind of leaders, not going into minutia, nitty-gritty, just big picture, having you part of the same wavelength, and you run with it. And then they coach you and mentor you, right?
Absolutely. And did you then use some of those skills, or some of the approach that he had with you later on in your life, in your volunteer service?
Absolutely. Those who hurt me in the beginning were also useful because I try not to be that hurtful. And once in a while, if I get carried away with my emotion, I have to catch myself to say, hey, this is not going to work. The objective will not be met. And of course, the good qualities I've learned from people like Firoz Rasool and Aziz Sharif and my uncle, my mom's brother, who was the president of National Council in Canada, Mohammed Manji, So people who have been part of my mentorship have really helped me to be who I am today. So yes, all of us play a part. You see, a leader is not how many followers you create. A leader is how many leaders you create. A sign of a good leader is to find a better leader. How you find a better leader? By grooming them, coaching them, mentoring them. That's how you find a better leader.
You're almost, actually starting to answer a question that has just popped up. The question is, leaders always influence people. Tell us tips of becoming a great leader.
So there's a saying, it's about a teacher, but it applies to leaders too, by William Arthur Ward. It says, a mediocre leader tells people what to do. A good leader explains. A superior leader demonstrates, whereas a great leader inspires. So what kind of leader do you want to be? You want to be a mediocre leader who tells people what to do? A good leader that explains? A superior leader that demonstrates? Or a great leader that inspires? And how do you inspire? It's inspire, inside out. If you're not inspired, you cannot inspire others. The more you are inspired, the more you can inspire others. So it's an inside out approach. You start from within and then go without, right? There's a beautiful saying by Dalai Lama. He says, first manage your power within. Second, you build trust, you build empathy and compassion. And third, you act for a greater good. First you, then others, then a greater good, all in one.
I am passionate about this topic of influence and leadership and its connection to emotional intelligence. Are you telling me, though, are you telling us that to be an inspirational leader, you need to have high emotional intelligence?
Yes, because you see, inspiration and influence you cannot demand. Influence and inspiration you earn. And how do you earn? By practicing emotional intelligence, by respecting others, their feelings, respecting your own feelings, others' feelings, the group's feelings, and showing that kind of empathy and compassion by which you are able to earn the inspiration and influence.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to your next letter, O. How should one enhance one's self-awareness? You say oneself. Please share.
So it's interpersonal is working with other people. Intrapersonal is working on yourself. So how do you work on yourself? Things like visualization. You visualize. Imagination. You imagine. You are reflecting. Okay, you are affirmation. You do affirmations. You do self-awareness, self-talk to your subconscious mind. Your self-talk determines how you act because your subconscious mind is hearing everything you're saying, right? So working on your meditation, mindfulness, focusing, what we need to bring attention to attention. Right now, we are attention deficit society. Everybody is so distracted by the phone, by this, by that. It's very hard for people to focus on something. So we need to bring back attention to ourselves. And this aspect of meditation, which is very powerful, as we all know, and we have this system in our community, in our faith, to wake up at 4 a.m, which is one of the most powerful things you can do to work on yourself, to be able to then work with others, because it's an inside-out approach.
Thank you. And I'm just wanting to remind the audience, please continue posting questions. After this, we will go to the Q&As. So please prepare your questions, post them as quickly as you can so we can get to them. Let's now move on to the last letter of the day. It feels like the journey does not stop here, right? We've spoken about all these different things, but it feels like it's just the beginning. Emotional intelligence is the beginning of a journey. It sounds like that to me. How do we go to the next level? And specifically, that point you raised, how do we marry the head and the heart?
Great question. So first of all, people who say I'm the master at emotional intelligence, or they say, look, don't work with me, work with my colleague, man, or my spouse or somebody else who needs emotional intelligence. Those people are the ones who need it the most because they think they know it all, but they don't know it all. This question about head and heart. I became a Kamaria many years ago in Canada, in Darkana. And my Mookie, he was the one who understood heart and head. He was not focusing just on the work. He was building relationship. And when we're having the breakfast, talking about how we can improve what we are doing. Second. Third, recently I got an email from Harvard Business Review. They had 6 books in a box. And all these 6 books were about emotional intelligence. One was about influence and persuasion. The second one was about authentic leadership. The third one was about mindfulness. The fourth one was about happiness. The fifth one was about empathy. And the sixth one was about resilience. But all of them connected to emotional intelligence. That's how important this subject has become. And so there's a next level. For me, there's next level. For you, Salim, is next level. For all of us, there's next level. If it was Firoz Rasool or even Aziz Sharif or whoever we named so far, Muhammad Manji, they all have a next level. There is no end to becoming better at emotional intelligence because it's an ongoing process, a work in progress. It's not a finished product.
Excellent, excellent. So you've talked to us about what each letter means in the word emotion. So how do we bring this all together? As a volunteer, we're asked to give, come to Kane early before everybody else, commit. Don't worry if somebody is saying something negative to you. How do we bring it all together so that the time we spent today, this evening, with those that are on the call will be able to resonate and have some real take-home value?
I want to share 3 things. Okay, three takeaways on how. And if people can practice these 3, it's phenomenal. Let's start with the first one. The first one would be, again, going back to intrapersonal, meaning meditation or even mindfulness. If I give the audience right now maybe 60 seconds, okay, Salim, you time it. I want 60 seconds just to watch your breath. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Just watch your breath for 60 seconds. Let's try it, okay? Close your eyes and try it. Don't go to sleep. Okay, and Salim, you time it, okay?
Time.
I almost thought you forgot. It looked like an hour for 1 minute, right? How long it took, right? Now imagine in a day there are 86,400 seconds. A day can be like eternity. It's bringing attention to attention. Right now we were focusing on our breath. So the idea is the moment you become focused on important things, and this mindfulness and meditation is a way, a vehicle to help you focus and concentrate on important things. And this way you expand your day. So that's number 1 tip. I want the volunteers to enhance their emotional intelligence, to start practicing mindfulness, to start working on their intrapersonal. That's number 1. Number 2, I want them to start practicing affirmation. What's an affirmation? You start saying to yourself, I am a highly emotionally intellectual person. I am a highly emotional intelligent person. I am a highly emotional. Keep saying it all the time. Write it down. What happens when you affirm something? You're telling your subconscious mind, this is who you are. And then when you start behaving in ways which is not aligned to being emotionally intelligent, the subconscious mind tells you, become uncomfortable. Hey, why are you behaving this way? If you are a highly emotionally intelligent person, why are you behaving this way? That's number 2. And number 3, buy a nice notebook. If you want to write in the computer, it's fine. Or a nice notebook. Start writing your journal. And every single day, you evaluate your day by saying, since I am a highly emotional, intelligent person, what did I do today to support that belief or that affirmation in myself, to other people, to groups? And then you learn from it what I'm doing right and what I can do better. If you do these three things, first, practice mindfulness or meditation. Secondly, you affirm that you are already a highly emotional, intelligent person. And number three is that I write a journal whereby I am learning what is going on. Let me give you an example of a journal. Brian Tracy is my co-author and a colleague. He's now 77 years old. His birthday was on 5th January. He became 77. The guy has written 77 books or thereabout. He's spoken to 50 million people or thereabout. You know what? I tell you, this guy and him, and we went in South Africa, your city, Johannesburg. We did an event for 4,000 people at Galahar Stadium. We did a 2-day MBA course. In 2 days, we finished the whole MBA. There's 294-page workbook. We were having dinners that night. He had traveled from the US, I had traveled from Canada. Then we are flying to Tanzania, 3-hour flight. After doing all these long-hour flights and late nights and all this, he's sitting beside me. He was 70 plus then, 72, whatever, 73. 3 hours, the guy didn't waste 1 second. In front of my eyes, he wrote a 15-page journal. Boom, 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 boom. And his beautiful handwriting non-stop. The only time he wasted, he went to bathroom twice. He was having too much coffee. And I can bet you my mortgage he was thinking in the bathroom. but the guy is amazing. You know what he was writing about? How was the 3 days in Joburg? What did we learn? How can we do it better? This is journal writing, really challenging yourself to get better and better and better every day in every way. And in this particular instance, we're talking about emotional intelligence. And that's how you get better. So first, practice mindfulness, meditation, quiet. So you're interpersonal, you're getting inspired, and then you affirm it, and then you practice it, and then you evaluate it.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you for that summation. I would like to encourage everyone to start posting more questions so that we can have further engagement. Let me start with a few questions in the meantime. So first question. Sometimes I feel that when we're trying to influence for the benefit of a larger purpose, some people might be thinking, I'm doing this because I want recognition or I want power. Am I misunderstanding the situation? There is this politics or in the hierarchy and, I want to get into that position, so I will do something for the Jamal so everyone can see, so I can become a particular position. It might not be only in a Jamaati situation, it could be in a work situation, etc., etc. Is there a conflict with one person trying to give with an expectation of getting a promotion?
So great question, Salim. I think it's very normal, all of us wanting recognition. That's why we say catch people doing things right, because when you give recognition, people feel valued, they want to do more, they're recognized. Even in our community, even Imam recognizes by giving titles and whatnot. So this is a normal thing. But I'll tell you one thing, Salim, and this is something which has come very late in my life. That if you can do this one or two or three things that are so powerful. One is you pray to Allah by saying, Allah, please make me use the talent you've given me, the gift you've given me, to the optimum for the good of the people, to make the highest impact I can make to the world at large, to the causes at large. Okay, I know for a fact, I'm not doing it. You're doing it. You are giving me the benefit to do it for you, and you're giving me the power and the intelligence and all that to do it. And I'm very thankful to be chosen, that you have chosen me to do it. That's number two. Number three is to say to Allah, look, Allah, I'm not interested in power. I'm not interested in credit. I'm not interested in recognition. All I'm interested is to make impact. If I can get that, Salim, if you can do that, I tell you, you become so powerful. You become so powerful because you become a source through which everything happens. I always, even before this session, I said a prayer. There's a Ginan, Karusreva, which means, oh my Kudawin, I'm trying to serve you. So grant me the wisdom and knowledge that I may need. Let those words be said by me which I like by you. So you're saying, I'm trying to serve you, but grant me the wisdom and knowledge because I don't have it. I mean, if I have it, it's given by you. Yeah? So I can serve the best I can and say the words that you would like me to say. So you become a source and a source of power. And happiness, the more you chase happiness for yourself, the more it eludes you. It's like a shadow. The more you walk up from the shadow eludes you. The more you walk away from the shadow and give it to others, it follows you. So the more you become a giver in the real sense, and if you look at, Khalil Gibran says it well. He says, look at the flower and the bee. Okay? The flower gives honey to the bee. The bee takes honey from the flower. So it's a joy of the honey and for the flower and the bee to give and receive. And if you become giving and receiving as the flower and the bee, you become magical. And if there were no receivers, there would be no givers. So we need receivers. So when you're giving, feel privileged because the best way to get happiness is to give happiness.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you the last question. If you can just take 1 minute to respond as we're getting close to the end of our program. In this busy life, we pay less attention to oneself. As you spoke, faith can help us in giving more attention to oneself. Being a leader, how should one pay more attention to oneself and get better in emotional intelligence for the benefit of others?
Great question. So, I've been giving this tip for last 20, 25 years. I wrote it in my book, Corporate Sufi, which came out about 20 years ago, about hour of power. So you wake up in the morning, do 20 minutes meditation, 20 minutes exercise, and 20 minutes reading something uplifting. Something for your body exercise, something for your mind, inspirational reading, and something for your soul meditation. This 1 hour you invest. It's not expense, it's not profit and loss account, it's balance sheet. The 1 hour you invest in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, significantly enhances the next 23 hours. You're more dynamic, more energetic, more fulfilled because you've done something for your body, something for your mind, something for your soul. Amazing, right? So why wouldn't you invest this hour? By investing this 1 hour for yourself, you are able to give a lot more to others. So this is a good start, a small start, a practical start. But remember one thing, what is simple to do is also simple not to do. So you got to challenge yourself by writing this journal, making this commitment, and starting to do it. And then watch how it multiplies, how a new habit is formed over time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Somebody just commented, I will start my emotional intelligence journal right now. Thank you, Azim. That's what somebody has just posted. So thank you, Yasmin, for that comment. Thank you, Azim, for always sharing your knowledge. I shared earlier, volunteers are a crucial part of our community. If I had to give an analogy, the volunteers are fuel to the engine of our community. Without the fuel, that engine is not moving. So again, to the volunteers, thank you. And thank you for doing this all the time when you're being requested. It's very much appreciated. Let me share a couple of closing thoughts and closing comments. Emotional intelligence is powerful. It can help you become a better team player. It can help you deal with change. And we know, oh my God, the changes that are happening in the world. It helps us with difficult conversation because you look inside before you look outside. It is a people skill that the world is looking for. And it is a key feature of how to be a strong leader. We've spoken about that. So thank you, Azim, for all your comments. Let's bounce back together stronger than before. It's been a very, very tough 2020, 2021. Inshallah is going to be much, much better. Let's practice emotional intelligence. Today, we learned a few ideas and some suggestions. Again, don't look at everything. Choose one thing that you're going to do different in 2021. Remember, if you do the same things over and over again, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. So let's find something that we can do different in 2021. On behalf of the Volunteers Capacity Building Portfolio of the Ismaili Council of Pakistan, we would like to appreciate the contribution of all the volunteers who perform their duties with enthusiasm, zeal, commitment, and devotion. They are our heroes, absolutely our heroes. We pray that this year brings lots of happiness in your lives and you're able to contribute more in service to the community. Please remember to practice social distancing, wear your mask, stay stay safe, stay healthy, and stay strong. Inshallah, we will be strong. We will get out of this. Happy New Year's to everyone. One Jamaat. Thank you to all the volunteers that help us create this program. Good night, everyone. Happy 2021.